Okay. It's bizarre. It didn't ask me where to go, but I would like to welcome you to our Zoom tonight, and I'm very excited about our 3 different speakers that we have. We are doing a night on heart tonight. Yeah, I'm pausing, so I'm going to stop my video so it's not disrupting, and you can hear my voice. But we are having 3 different speakers, and they're talking about different heart issues tonight. And we're going to start with Richard Beers. I have known Richard for many, many years. I don't even know when we first met, but having been in Shakti for many years. Rachel was a little kid, is what I remember. So yeah. I don't remember when that was, but how many years have you been in Shakti, Richard?
Well, depending on when you start counting, about 25 years as a business.
Okay, but so he's going to tell you a story. So it's probably about 25 years ago that we met then. When you, how old is Rachel now?
Rachel was born in 93, so a few years after we started the business.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I'm excited because I was on Facebook one day and Richard was doing a live from a hospital bed, and I'm like, what in the world is going on? And so I listened and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. We need to have him share his story so more people can hear it. So I'm just going to let him go, and he's going to share some pictures with you as we get going. And take it away, Richard.
Okay, thanks, Nina. I appreciate it. I'm going to start off by, I've done all this with pictures because I didn't want to mess around with PowerPoints and stuff. So it's my first time putting this together, and I'll be short because I know there's other people to do there. And so I'm going to share my screen first and see if that comes across. Can you see that sign?
Yes, it's
okay.
Coming. It's coming.
So,
there it is. Oh, there it is. Yes, there it is.
See it?
Awesome.
Yeah, raise your hand if you can see it.
Everybody can see it.
There's one. All right, good. So this comes from a hand towel that Kay bought when I came home from the hospital, and I thought, well, you know, I should probably call my presentation "Bless Your Heart." So, let me get right to it. There. Let's start off at the beginning. This is me. I'm a sailor, and this is a major portion of the story. That's me at about 1 year old, maybe 1.5, something like that, on a sailboat that we still race today. And we call the boat Two Beers. That's my last name. So I'll tell you why that's important in our story in a few seconds. But this was the nameplate off my father's boat from the 50s, and my father and my uncle sailed together. So Two Beers is a natural name. But to give you an idea of how long I've been in Shakti, I started as a customer and an original distributor in 1972. That's my bag. That when you became a distributor, you got a Shakti bag. That's it. I still have mine, and that kind of tells you a little bit. We've been over 25 years. That's the marker that's the name tag that we got from from August when we were there. So we've been around a while, and because our last name is Beers, we changed our company name to sailtohealth.net. This is our logo, and that's my sailboat. Because, you know, it's hard to say you're in the health and nutrition business when you say the name of my company is Beers Health Associates. It kind of doesn't go well, or it goes really well. But anyway, this is the name of our company. That's our logo. And sailing is my life, as you'll see in here. Here's a picture of that boat again with Rachel that Nina was just referring to. She's on the left side. She's steering the boat. It's 28 foot long, and it can pull a skier in a windy day. And so we race these things. It's exciting. There's Rachel again sailing in a smaller boat. That's her boat that she races. And just a little, and we did sail one time together and won a couple of races in the same day. It was very exciting. So as you can tell, sailing is part of it. Now, what's interesting is that this year at age 25, she was elected Commodore of the Delavan Lake Yacht Club, which is the youngest person who's ever been a Commodore of our racing lake. So that's my brag. Thanks for watching. Now, Here's kind of what it looks like when you're watching our sailboat races. It's pretty dramatic. It's pretty exciting. These are people who are world-class athletes. Several of them have gold and silver and bronze medals. And sometimes it can get pretty exciting, you know, because these boats don't have any keels you can tip over. So it's a very athletic event. And here's another one where they're, you know, working hard to keep it up to speed. And this year we were very excited. We won a trophy in one of our classes, and here's the one that Rachel and I won, or we got third place in. So it's fun. It's a family thing. And I put this in here because I get carried away. So I want to remember not to get distracted by the goal of sharing with you my health story. So heart disease is very, very important, especially for men. I'm 66 and was in what I thought was perfect health. I didn't have any symptoms. I raced 8 races a week over the summer, go to the gym, all that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, I felt a little soreness in my shoulder after sailing season was over. And I thought, why is that? I mean, I've been sailing all this time. Went to the ER. They took some blood samples and said, you have some elevated heart enzymes, which means that there's something wrong. And I said, is it bad? And they said, well, we don't really know. And I said, well, I got a meeting tonight. I'll come back tomorrow. They said, you're going to a meeting at a hospital in Milwaukee by ambulance right now. And you know, when you're not used to being ill, I haven't taken any medications, you go, wait, you don't understand. I got this other thing to do, like life. And they said, well, no, let's go take a look. So we went to the hospital, and here's a picture of the coronary findings, which shows the heart. It says mid RCA to dist RCA lesion with 100% stenosis, which means 100% blocked. And I said, oh, that sounds like it's bad. He said, you're lucky. He said, you have some blockage, but there's something very unusual about your heart. He said, you have these collateral vessels, little tiny vessels that have grown around the blockages, little tiny ones. Here's a picture of it exactly. And you'll see the large, heavy, dark lines are great. But in the back, or what looks like the back, are these really light lines that go all the way through there. And he said, you have a series of collateral vessels that have helped get oxygen to your heart without showing you any symptoms. And it looks kind of like a New York subway map. He's from New York City. He goes, that's the collateral vessels supply that you're getting. And it means that, you know, you're lucky because your heart has made an accommodation, and we don't ever see anything that complex, that dense, and that overarching. But however, you need a 5-way bypass. And he said, here's the diagram that shows that you have 2 arteries that are 100% occluded. That means, blocked, and 3 at 70%. So you're not going anywhere except to get a surgery. And they did it. It was amazing. I had surgery on Tuesday. I was in ICU on Wednesday. I was on the floor on Thursday. I'd walked 1.5 to 2 miles on Friday, and I was home on Saturday. So they and I wanted to get out. So this is me, not quite so happy, but at least home after surgery. So the amazing thing about this is, and I want to kind of get to the solution here, because I said, you know, it's kind of weird that I'm in the nutrition business, have taken handfuls of vitamins for 20 plus years, 25 years, and I got to have a 5-way bypass. And he said, well, your collateral vessels have saved your life. We know how long they take to grow. I'll go back here. We know how long those take to grow, those collateral vessels, and we think that maybe you've had that occlusion for up to 20 years. 20 years. So that means that something in my body was telling my heart to generate these collateral vessels. And obviously, if you don't have the right kind of nutrients, you don't have the right opportunities. And so if I had a normal, regular diet, I would probably be dead by now. And two, I wouldn't have had the collateral vessels that have kept me alive for this long with no symptoms, literally no symptoms. So, so I want to get to, well, what did I do? Well, I'm going to cardio rehab, so there's somebody who's watching me, measuring me, giving me advancing uh, exercises, and it's cardio stuff and all that. And so here's my advice for people on how to do well. And eat clean, drink water, train hard, set goals, stay focused, and never give up. Because when they told me that my option was to go home and live for maybe 30 days or have the surgery and live for maybe 35, the answer was obvious. And I was excited because, you know what? I knew I had in my back pocket a whole bunch of vitamins. In fact, Kay was sneaking in stuff when I was at the hospital. Well, a little funny story. When I was in ICU, the lady was, I think, trying to figure out whether I was conscious yet or not, recovered from the surgery. She goes, Richard, are you there? And I said, yes. He said, I'm looking on the sheet and it says you're taking garlic. Why are you taking garlic? And I said, aren't we in ICU of a heart hospital? She said, yes. I said, if you guys don't know the value of garlic in heart, you guys had to talk to my wife because she can teach you something. Anyway, so here are the things that I think are really important in any heart healthy approach to world. And that is, you need to take the Life Shake, or I recommend taking the Life Shake and the Life Plan, because this is insurance that I'm quite willing to pay for. You know, it has all the nutrients I need to have. It tastes good. I can use it. I'm not a technical person, so I don't know all of the things I should be taking. Fortunately, Kay does. But that's where I would start in any recommendation to anyone who has a heart issue or is recovering from heart surgery or all that. These are good, solid products that you can take to help. So that's the first thing. And I would always start there first. Second is these are the heart products that are good for my kind of issue, and that is Omega Guard. CoQ Heart is very, very important, especially as you get over age 50. And then Cholesterol Reduction Complex, which is a natural way for me to do it. By the way, when I went to see the doctor a month and a half ago, the blood work test, the doctor said the blood work says that you don't have a heart problem, right? That means I don't have high cholesterol. I don't have anything in the blood that's saying you have a continuing problem. So I'm crediting that to the fact that I've taken these food supplements for as long as I have. Here's the blood pressure regimen, which is Omega Guard and CoQ Heart. You'll see those two keep repeating for a reason, because they're very, very important for good quality blood and good quality heart muscle. And then on the right is blood pressure, which is a great way to work on a natural way to reduce blood pressure. Interesting, when I'm going to cardio, my blood pressure, they take a reading before I start. And by the time I'm finished with my 1 hour of cardio work, my blood pressure is always significantly lower every time. So that's a good indication that if you want to have good blood pressure, make sure you're doing exercise. And the best exercise you could have for anyone who can walk is to walk. You know, you don't have to run the marathon. Walking is fabulous. So this is me, surrounded by all the things I like to do. And I'm smiling because I am now planning to go sail in a regatta in February, which I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do, a month and a half ago. I thought, I don't know if I'm going to make it or not, but I have energy. I have good upper body strength from all the workouts. And so I'm ready to get back into it. And I wanted to leave you, with this, and that is, Shackley has a guarantee that you'll be satisfied. But not only that, we have proof from the 3 or 4 studies that you probably know a lot about. But this is the important thing. Shackley is the only nutritional products in the world that are clinically proven to help people live younger, longer, over 3, 5, 20, 30, 40, and 50 years. I believe it. I always thought, people who have a significant health story have this cachet. They can be dramatic. They can be powerful. And for a long time, I didn't have one, but I'm happy to say I'm still alive and have one available. So that's my story. I hope it didn't take too long. And I'm going to stop sharing now. How's that? And that's me.
That's awesome, Richard. Thank you so much for sharing. I am absolutely amazed at what these products do for our bodies all the time. And when you said that thing about the collateral veins in your Facebook Live, I'm like, what is that? And because I saw other people commenting on your feed saying how amazing they were and how our body can build them and protect, and to hear that where you were, but it was because of all those collateral veins, and that doesn't happen without good nutrition, I don't think.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Richard.
Thanks for asking.
So the next one that we're going to have is Linda Myers. Linda she's been using Shackley for, I think, about the same amount of time. She'll tell you how long it has been. And all of a sudden, she ended up with something going on, and I'm like, what? And I think so often that these health issues start years before, and Marion said this one other time, it takes about 25 years for something to really manifest itself out. But the problem is already starting quite a while before. So, Linda, I appreciate you being willing to share tonight. If you would just come on now and share your story. Or should I?
Should I start?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Linda Myers. I've been using Shackley for 20 years. My story happened about 15 years ago when I'd been on the product it started when I'd been on it for at least 4 years and concluded when I had been on it for 8 years. I had a very stressful job, and I was starting to have pains in my chest. I was quite young at the time, though, so I wasn't real concerned about it. But I did go to the doctor. He did an EKG, came out normal, and he attributed it to stress because I did have a job where I worked with middle school students with emotional behavior problems. And I was taking care of a very ill sister, and I was her power of attorney. And at the time, I was taking her through a bankruptcy, selling her house, and a divorce. And she was disabled, so I was doing all of that because I was power of attorney for her. So I was like, okay, it is stress. Okay, so another year goes by. The pain is getting worse. It's happening more frequently. Sometimes it just came out of the blue when I was just sitting. Sometimes it came from walking and other exertions. So I went back to the doctor. Another EKG. He said it's normal, it's good, but let's do an echo. You just don't fit the model for having heart disease because you're young, you're female, your blood work is amazing, you're very fit, and so because I didn't fit that mold, he did have me go do an echo. The echo turned out pristine. My chambers and my valves were all wonderful. My heart recovered just, the nurse even said, "Oh my gosh." And I said, "What? Oh my gosh." She said, "Your heart recovered immediately." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's a good thing." But while I was on the treadmill, I was having chest pains, and I was having the pain go down my arm, and my hand was becoming numb. And they couldn't get my heart rate up high enough because I was so fit. And I told the cardiologist I'm having pain, and he said, "Can you keep going?" And I said, "Well, if I drop over, will you, help me?" Because, it wasn't a good sign. And then he kept me going. And then I told him the pain's going down my arm and my hand is becoming numb. And now I know these are classic signs. I mean, not for women, but it's classic signs. But everything came out great. So it's stress, and you need to just maybe go on medication or something. And I was like, no, I'll do my Shackley even more religiously and try and deal with my stress better. Went another year. The symptoms continued to get worse. Cold weather, cold air, and I am an outdoors person, so I'm outside all the time. Cold air would trigger it. I was getting to the point where the pain was so bad I couldn't catch my breath. I would have to sit and try and recover from it. People around me were like, "Linda, this is not normal." And I'm like, it's the doctors are saying it's stress. It's I have to believe them. The same thing was happening, with walking upstairs. I'd be sitting in my classroom trying to catch my breath, and people around me were getting really concerned, and they were like, "You've got to go back to the doctor." And I said, "Okay." Went back and did an EKG. This time something did show up. So he scheduled a nuclear stress test. Same thing happened. They couldn't get my heart rate up high enough. And the pain was happening in my chest and going down my arm, and my hand was getting numb. And they didn't seem too concerned. So anyway, that test, I did get a phone call that the doctors had left for the weekend, but if I did have any pain, to call the ambulance and go immediately to the emergency room. So apparently they had found something. So they scheduled me Monday for catheterization to see if anything was going on. And because once again, I did not fit the mold for heart disease, the doctor that was doing the procedure that day said, "We probably will find nothing." And I was like, "Okay, that's good. I hope you find nothing." So anyway, went in, they found 2 blockages, and they put 2 stents in, and a third blockage that they could not open. And then the other thing that was really amazing to me, the way they described it was my heart had bypassed itself, and it was receiving blood that kept me basically from having a heart attack. And the pain I was experiencing, I could have had a heart attack at any time. But because of my heart, that I was just, my heart is amazing. My body's amazing. It kept me alive those 3 years I was being misdiagnosed. And let me see, I'm just looking at my notes here. I truly believe, I know I have no proof, I truly believe it was the Shackley nutrition that I was taking that allowed my body to do that, and to keep me alive, and so that I could get the proper treatment that I needed. I kind of kick myself because I'm like, what if I had gone to the right doctor, change doctor, not just believe them. I'm not like that anymore. I'm much more listen to your body and insist on some answers, because I knew something was wrong, but I just did not have the time and energy with my job and taking care of my sister to, you know, to buck the experts. And but I know better now. And I really thank God for Shackley for helping keep me alive during that time.
Wow.
That's my cardiac story.
Wow, Linda, thank you so much. I never really remember hearing that entire part of that. I didn't, but what amazes me is that we hear Richard's story and we hear your story, that how your body had made those veins, rerouted, and kept you alive.
Mhm.
And I love that about what we do, because what we have to go out and shout from the rooftops. Can we say for certain it's from Shackley? No. But if you have a sick body, can that happen? No. I guess that's the other side of that. So we're going to have one more. Mike is going to share with us. And then after they're done, if anybody has any questions, you can ask any one of the three. So Mike, if you want to share with us now, this is Mike Galonia. He has, well, I think we've probably known Mike for 20 plus, something like that. Anyways, another amazing guy, and he's got a phenomenal story to share as well. You know, when you hear these stories, it's like, thank you, God, for Shackley. You know, so Mike, go ahead.
Okay. My name's Mike Alonia, and actually been around Shackley for a little over 25 years. My wife was the one that kind of got introduced to it because she had MS and she was looking for natural way instead of trying to do the drug route, and that's kind of how we all got started in Shackley. And so I reluctantly, just because she told me to, take these supplements, which I was doing. And as years were going on, she was getting a lot better. And I was feeling pretty good myself. I was working at that time, it was normally a 40-hour week, but most of the times it was like 50 hours each week on a job. And I usually get pretty stressed because I was the foreman in a bindery that sometimes you just get a lot of pressure on you and everything. And I wasn't really eating quite well like I should be all the time, especially morning and afternoon. I was known as a sandwich guy for lunch. I'd have a sandwich every lunchtime and stuff like that, and but always a good meal at supper time because my wife always made sure that I had to have something good to eat. And it's been about 6 years now. I ended up with a crazy infection that I somehow picked up at work in my one finger, and I had to go and have part of that finger taken off because of how bad the infection was, and I don't even know how it happened or how it even came about. And the doctor was kind of, yeah, I don't know how it happened either, but we have to take part of that finger off. And I was like, oh, okay. So had that done, and it's about 3 weeks or so later, I was on these meds and everything for it and everything, and I was feeling kind of odd at work. Just I wasn't feeling my normal self. Just feeling off, totally off. So I wasn't thinking that much about it, and then I remembered, oh, I was reading the side effects on the drugs like they usually do if someone gives you something if you have to take it. And I remembered, oh, it was kind of said that, yeah, you can feel like you might be a little tired, or you feel like you got some tightness or something going on from these drugs. And I figured, well, okay, I've been on for a couple weeks now. Maybe they're starting to catch up with me or something, whatever it was. And a little more time went by, another half hour, and I'm like, geez, I just don't feel right. So I got on the phone, I called the doctor's nurse, told her what was going on, and she goes, well, I don't want to panic you or anything like that, but I think you ought to go right now and just go to an emergency care place or something. So you don't have to go to emergency room, go to one of them urgent care clinics. Just go there, let them know what's happening, and just see what they say. They said, okay. So I drove over to the urgent care place, and I walked in and they asked what was going on, and I told them, and they said, oh, you can stand right here. We'll get you in right away. You don't have to wait the 2 hours. I'm like, okay. So they came out, got me, they took me in. First thing they did was give me EKG. And then the doctor came in, read the EKG, took a look at me and went, well, not sure when it might have happened or whatever, but according to the EKG, it looks like you may have had a heart attack. Didn't say it was maybe today, it could have been a few days ago, not sure. Suggest you go to the hospital. It's okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not feeling that bad. I don't know, you know. So I get in the car and I drive to the hospital. Well, I get to the hospital and I called my wife up and told her what was going on. And I actually waited for her in the parking lot to come over there before I went in. And as we were walking to the doors, there were people standing by the door with a wheelchair, and they said, are you Mike Lonia? And I said, yeah. Sit down in the chair. And they wheeled me in and took me in, put me on a bed. And the cardiologist came over and he was looking at me, talking to me, and then my wife and him were talking, and I'm just laying on the gurney with, well, what's going on? And so they decided to give me a cardiac cath. And after they did that, they said, he's going into surgery right away. They had like 4 blockages, about 90%. And he said, this is basically a widowmaker. I'm surprised your husband's alive. So went into surgery. You know, it's kind of on the same thing with Richard. I was in there 1 day, 2 days, up everything, kind of getting my Shackley supplements too, and walking the halls a little earlier. And about a week or so, I was out and everything, and then I went into rehab. And I was doing my rehab and everything, and the people in the rehab center were saying, well, you're doing pretty good for, you know, what happened to you and everything. And I was like, yeah, I know. I says, I really was surprised at what had been done. So then I had an appointment with my cardiologist. I went to see him and was waiting in the chair for him to come in. He came in and he looked at me and he says, I don't understand how you're sitting in this chair today. You shouldn't be here. You should be in a box somewhere. And he says, I'm just amazed. He says, you had a 40% heart rate. And I was like, wow. And then I explained to him about, you know, I take a lot of Shackley and stuff like that. And oh, no, the vitamins have nothing to do with that. And I'm kind of like, nah, okay, well, I'm not going to argue with you because he's just kind of a stonewall like that. And I was like, okay, whatever. And so after that, I was doing pretty good. I was feeling better more and more each day. I was getting stronger and everything else. And then we were at a conference in Atlanta, and Charlene Pike had a bunch of masters and stuff in a room one night talking about her organization and everything, and she had a bunch of her people in there. And they were telling having them tell their stories. And it was funny because Ray DeBrinket was in there, and he was talking about heart issues that he had. And he said, yeah, he says, the funny part about it is, he says, I went through all this and everything, he says, and the doctor told me how well I was doing and everything. And he said, I don't know whatever you're doing, but you're keep it up and everything. But then he had heard about how good Vivix was as far as helping out people with heart issues and stuff. So he started doubling his dosage on it, taking it twice a day. And he went in the next time, and the doctor said, wow, you really improved quite a lot. And he goes, yeah, I know. And he's just saying, I credit it to doing that. So I started taking it twice a day. And never had any other, my checkups were always good and everything as far as how I was feeling and blood work and everything else. And then I had to schedule a stress test, one of the nuclear stress tests. And I was doing the stress test, and I was going and going and going, and guy says, can you go a little longer? I said, yeah, and a little longer. And can you do a little more? And I said, yeah. And he said, wow. He says, you did pretty good. And I said, oh, thanks. And a few days later, I went in to get the results of the stress test, and come to find out that I was back up to about 90% as far as my heart went. So I was like, wow. I said, that really impressed me. And the only thing I can say is, I hold all the Shackley. So.
I'll tell you what, when you hear these stories, it makes you more grateful, eh?
Mm-hmm.
It's so amazing. I'm sitting here listening to all three of you, and I'm like, wow. But is there any, I don't have heart issues, but I'm still, what this does is it gives each of us the ability to be able to, when we hear people who are having problems, right? So does anybody have any questions for any one of the three that are on here?
Nina?
Yes.
This is Marion. You know what? Kurt had a heart attack. And I don't know if you want to make any comments on.
Well, I could just start out with, I was single until I was 56 years old. I ate in restaurants. If I cooked something, I cooked a steak at home and with French fries. Went to Long John Silver's and got the chicken planks, Arby's, and did that for a good many years. When Mountain Dew came out, I pretty well drank a minimum of 2 to 3 Mountain Dew a day for many years. And then in 1999, Marion and I got married. And I met her in 97 and started taking some Shackley products. And of course, after we were married, I'm taking lots of Shackley products. But anyway, I went along, no symptoms, no nothing ever. I'm fine, doing great. And then one Sunday night, I went to a church meeting and came home, and I had a circle of pain right around my heart, dull pain, but just a circle right around my heart. Of course, if I got up and walked around, it kind of went away. And Marion was already ready for bed, and so of course I didn't tell her. So the next day I went, I walked with some guys at the church. So I walked some with them, and then we do work at the church. So we're replacing the rubber seals on urinals. So we're taking the urinals off the wall and putting seals on them and everything else. So that evening, about 6:30, Marion's in the office, and that circle of pain came back. And fool me once, That's okay. Don't fool me twice. So I walked in the office and I said, Marion, we're going to the hospital now. And she says, what? And I said, we're going to the hospital now. And so we went there, and of course I walked in. She's going to get me a wheelchair. I walked in, and then they put me all the way in the back of the emergency room. And you have to wait for them to get the enzyme test. And in the meantime, this pain is about a 6, but just dull. But you're not going to sleep. You're not going to, anything. And they finally come back and said, oh, you're having a heart attack. And so anyway, they finally, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I got a shot of morphine to take the pain away. And then right after I got that, they came in and said, oh, I was scheduled for 11 o'clock for the doctor to put a stent in. They came in and said, well, the doctor was called in for somebody else, so you're going to go in at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I went in and got one stent, and that was on the OM artery, which is in the back of the heart. But there's a smaller artery that goes off of that OM. And after the fact, I found out from the doctor's report, that one has been blocked. That one had been blocked. They couldn't put anything through there. They were going to try to put a stent in it, but they couldn't get through it. So they said, well, it's been that way for a long time. Don't worry about it. So then, of course, I was out of the hospital. Well, could have gone home the second day, but there was a snowstorm, so they said, maybe you better stay. So anyway, I at that time then, I actually became a vegetarian. I went on Dr. Ornish's diet. And of course, we're still taking lots of Shackley. And then that was 2011. So in 2017, anyway, the doctors finally convinced me I needed a stress test, a nuclear stress test, which I'd been avoiding because a doctor from the Cleveland Clinic told me to never get a stress test. He says, you've had enough x-rays to last you a lifetime, because you're under x-rays while they put a stent in. So anyway, so I finally did the stress test. Now my doctor, I was 72, I think, and he was 62. And they wanted to get my heart rate to 135. And they could not get it to 135. They got it to 134, and they couldn't get any higher. And he said, you've got the heart of an athlete because, it's not normal to not be able to get you to 135. So then I got off the stress test, and he said, he says, I'm 62 and you're 72. I just had this test 4 months ago. And he said, you just did as well as I did. So my heart is, supposedly there was some blockage of blood flow from that spot that was stopped up, but they told me I had no heart damage. They cannot show that I had any heart damage. My EKG still isn't as good as perfect, but so it does show some damage, but I can do anything. I never have a pain. And I take the Vivix sometimes twice a day, but so I use the pills and the liquid. So I've done very good, and hopefully will continue to do well, taking my Shackley, and by the grace of God.
At the time that he was in there on the gurney, that's when he started giving me his passwords. So, yeah, I never knew the passwords to anything.
Wow. Another great story. You know what? Like you said, Kurt, in the end there, with Shackley and the grace of God. I always say that, with God and Shackley. So thank you again. I know that we're over time already. Does anybody have any quick questions?
Nina, maybe you could go over how they can get on the YouTube.
Okay, sure. If I will put this on YouTube, I have to run. They're having a meeting right now that I'm supposed to be at. I'm in Montana, by the way, at a funeral. Let me stop the recording here.